Hey, welcome back. In this second video, we're going to talk about the trade-offs, which is theme one for the course, of the technology that is going to influence the outdoor air that we breathe. Next video, we'll deal with the air that is inside our buildings. Okay, so the main technology that we're talking about here is not going to be super surprising. It's energy production and use. So what we're talking about there is the burning of fossil fuels. Basically that. Whether we're burning it in power plants to electrify our homes and our buildings, or we're burning it in as gasoline in cars. Basically, that's it. To be clear, we don't, we don't usually think about this in terms of trade-offs, but we need to because we get a ton of benefit out of this. The pros, I'm going to sort of stupidly call them superpowers, but I mean, they really are. We don't think about it in these terms, but our hunter-gatherer ancestors could move 3 miles an hour to 10 miles an hour. You and I regularly move 70 miles an hour. It's a super speed. Our hunter-gatherer ancestors they either lived by the light of the sun or by a campfire. We have the ability to control light just with a flick of our hand. We have the ability to control the temperature in a way that, obviously a campfire does to a degree, but if you get any distance from a campfire, it's not doing much for you. We can sit in wintertime in shorts inside our homes, again, just by a flick of a switch or turning a dial. I mean, these are incredible things that we are able to do. We can, with the use of, communication media, either person to person or broadcast media, we have the ability to hear and see people who are thousands of miles away. Hear and see people, we can go back in time and hear what they said years and years ago. I mean, all of these things, when you think about them, from the perspective of an individual human being, these are superpowers that no human beings in the course of history have ever had. And we take them incredibly for granted, and they're very cool, and we get them because of this. So, big pros to energy production and use, but big cons too. I want to talk about cons in two categories: directly and indirectly. In terms of the direct, I get mixed up based on which way I need to move here because it's backwards on my camera. In terms of the direct cons, what we're talking about is sort of generally categorized in terms of smog and soot. Smog is the direct exhaust that's coming from these things that is gaseous and interacts with sunlight. It irritates your eyes in your throat. You're driving behind somebody who's kicking up a ton of exhaust. You can smell it, and it's horrible, and that smell is it being bad for you. So smog is the product of the exhaust interacting with sunlight. Soot is the particulate matter. So instead of it being gas, what we're talking about here is very, very small solids. The problem, as I alluded to in the first video, is that when we breathe these things in, they can penetrate into our lungs and get into our bloodstream. So what they do is they can worsen bronchitis, lead to heart attacks, lead to cancer. In switching slightly, they affect our brains and our minds in terms of headaches, which creates an inability or more difficulty in terms of concentrating, in terms of learning. And it even has been shown to negatively affect IQ. So what we're talking about here is, we get a ton from this, but pay the price in terms of health outcomes. It's worth mentioning, because I'm going to discuss this later. These are health outcomes that our hunter-gatherer ancestors didn't have to deal with. Things that we take for granted that are just part of life, and we hope that they're not, but I mean, it's obvious that they are. These are things that we've brought upon ourselves. Well, that's a little bit of a harsh way to say it. You and I didn't bring them upon ourselves, but we were born into a world where humans had made a decision that's going to impact us in terms of these things kind of being inevitable in our lives. All right, now let's go to indirect. So indirectly, and in terms of indirect, I mean these fossil fuels that we are burning create climate change. So this is not dependent on climate change. This smog and soot, even without it creating climate change, we've got those. But climate change makes things worse, which is kind of an obvious thing to say, but worth saying. In terms of allergens, so here we're talking about plants and molds. They have more carbon dioxide in the air, which means more food for them to grow, which means more growth. They also, because it's a little bit warmer, they have a longer growing season. So there's a lot more, for example, pollen in the air. So if you find that you are having a longer allergy season, or sometimes for some of us, allergy season just doesn't go away anymore, it's not your imagination. That's because of climate change. I put more soot, which is just ridiculous. I'm kind of embarrassed that I wrote that, but it's true in the sense that the soot that we're talking about here is this particulate matter coming from the burning of fossil fuels. The soot here is about the increase in wildfire. All of us have been dealing with wildfires over the last few years, either on the West Coast or coming down from Canada. This is particulate matter that we are breathing in, that we would not be breathing in if it weren't for climate change making forest fires that much worse. That's it. It's a little bit, in conclusion, it's a little bit like a stereotypical or archetypal, I guess, blues song where you make a deal with the devil. You get incredible things out of it, but there's a huge price to pay in terms of your health. As we saw, 7 million people dying a year because of air pollution. Now, sociology is not really known for its positive spins on things, but it is worth saying that this is getting better. We are transitioning to solar and to wind. So going back to the 1970s, signed into law by Richard Nixon, the 1970 Clean Air Act has had a huge impact on us in America. It's why we aren't. It's not 99% of us that are living in heavily air polluted environments, unlike the rest of the world. All right, that's it. Outdoor air. Next video, I will come back and we will discuss, and it will be kind of horrible to you because you'll probably be watching this inside, pollution indoors. I'll see you then.